When the history of immigrant churches and pastors and the impact they've made in Minnesota and the larger United States is written, one name that will be prominently featured is that of Reverend Dr. Francis O.S. Tabla Sr. Dr. Tabla is a born-again Christian, an ordained minister of the gospel, gifted by God as an evangelist, pastor, preacher, and teacher. He was born at the Dusa Hospital in Firestone, Liberia. He formerly served as pastor in charge of the Habel Christian Fellowship in Habel, Liberia, and pastor of the Grace Baptist Church in Baptistville, Liberia. He also taught at the Monrovia Bible Training Center, Dr. William Abertoba Jr. Memorial Baptist Theological Institute, and registrar and assistant instructor at the Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary, where he taught courses in church administration, church history, history of Christian thought, homiletics, and philosophy of religion. He was also director of the Living Way Baptist Bible Correspondent Course, an outreach ministry of the Southern Baptist Mission in Liberia, with over 5,000 students across Liberia and a few other parts of the world. A native of Liberia and a West African missionary to the United States, Dr. Tabla is a church planter and pastor of the Ebenezer Community Church in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, for the last 18 years. God has blessed him to lead the congregation to grow from 8 members to over 700, and to also lead the congregation to build a multi-million-dollar building. He preaches across the United States and does revivals, leadership workshops, and training seminars for churches and private church organizations. He has been featured in numerous articles in newspapers and on few television and radio networks. Dr. Tabla is past executive director of the Liberian Ministers Association of Minnesota and author of the book, My Golden Rule, How Men Should Treat Women. He is the African Outreach Coordinator for Christians United for Israel, with over 5 million members in the United States. Dr. Tabla leads tours to Israel for African American pastors, Christians, African pastors, and church leaders. He holds the Doctor of Ministers degree in Biblical Preaching with emphasis in stewardship from Luther Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota, a Master's of Divinity degree from the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union University, a mini MBA in non-profit management from the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota, a Bachelor's of Theology degree from the Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary in Liberia, West Africa, and a diploma in electronics from the Booker Washington Institute in Kakata, Liberia. In recognition of the impact God has enabled Dr. Tabla to have on the lives of many people at home and abroad, the First Baptist Church of Richmond, Virginia, set up the Francis O.S. Tabla Scholarship Fund at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union University, which is granted yearly to students pursuing the Master's of Divinity degree. He is married to his high school sweetheart, the beautiful pastor Christine Tabla. Their union of 26 years is blessed with 5 children. They are also blessed with numerous spiritual sons and daughters at home and abroad. For the enormous impact Dr. Tabla continues to make on the Ebenezer Community Church and the larger Christian community, the leadership roles he plays so selflessly in the Liberian community, and for strengthening the bonds between Christians and the nation of Israel, the Men's Department of the Fifth Chapel Evangelistic Ministries honors and appreciates the Reverend Dr. Francis O.S. Tabla Sr. In 1996, a group of refugees who had settled in the Ivory Coast Having been called by God, we're poised to dedicate a new church known as the Faith Chapel Evangelistic Ministries. Instrumental in its funding and present at the dedication was the then young evangelist, the Reverend Ronald W. Parks. Reverend Parks' relationship with Faith Chapel and its founder, the Reverend John B. Sarah, would spend decades and take him to villages and cities in Liberia and the Ivory Coast. This expanded call to global missions ministry that Reverend Parks received in 1996 had led him to travel extensively to many countries of the world, evangelizing, edifying, equipping, and encouraging. He serves as International Ambassador of Global Mission Frontier, a Zimbabwean-based mission agency, and is Program Director for Global Radio Network. Ronald W. Parks served as Director of the Philadelphia Bible Fellowship Church Planting Alliance, Incorporated, a Philadelphia-based missions agency, which is a fellowship of churches. He is the lead pastor of the Love Fellowship Church. His evangelistic work is richly complemented by his wife, Cynthia Ann Parks, who is herself a missionary. He is the father of one daughter, grandfather to four. Reverend Parks received his biblical and ministry training at the Philadelphia College of Bible University. He also studied at the Delaware Valley Deliverance Crusade Bible School. Whether he's preaching on the streets of South Philadelphia or encouraging a brother, Reverend Parks is fulfilling God's calling. Reverend Parks composes the internet devotional, The Morning Word Ministry, and is the radio host of the Welcome Today and the Evening program. He's a writer, musical and worship leader, keyboard player, a songwriter, and arranger. Reverend Parks is the embodiment of Mark 16:15. In his own words, he says, for some of us, God's calling involves the road. We will never stay the same where we are and fully obey God. In the gospel ministry, the road in some form will become your practice, whether footsteps to our neighbors or flight to a person of another culture. For his continued commitment to the Faith Chapel Evangelistic Ministries, his passion for evangelism, and his dedication to the body of Christ, the men's department of the Faith Chapel Evangelistic Ministries appreciates and honors the Reverend Ronald W. Parks. A writer once said, "There's nothing small in the service of God." At Faith Chapel, no one personifies that adage more than Deacon Jerome Fakbana. Deacon Jerome is a long-standing member of Faith Chapel who has served in a number of different capacities. There's absolutely nothing too small or too big for Deacon Jerome, and he's willing to take on new challenges as well. Here is a classic example. Recognizing the need for a technician within the music ministry and having no experience whatsoever, Jerome volunteered and today has become an invaluable member of the music ministry. He is married to the beautiful Chriscelia, and the union is blessed with 2 boys. For his dedicated service to this church, his willingness to take on new challenges, and his commitment to the body of Christ, the men's department of the Faith Chapel Evangelistic Ministries appreciates and honors Deacon Jerome K. Vakbana. Over 25 years ago, a Liberian refugee crossed over to Danane, the Ivory Coast, as a consequence of the Liberian civil crisis, and began the improbable journey of transforming that village for Jesus Christ, fulfilling the Great Commission and reaching hundreds of lost souls through what is now the Faith Chapel Evangelistic Ministries. That refugee is the Reverend John B. Saab. The vision that is now the Faith Chapel Evangelistic Ministries was conceived on August 4th, 1996, when Pastor Saab assembled a group of 13 for the purpose of establishing a ministry that will evangelize to the people of Danane and the pagan inhabitants of the nearby villages. Under his leadership and by the blessing of God, Faith Chapel has witnessed substantial growth from the initial 13 to hundreds, spread out across 4 churches in the United States and Liberia. The beautiful building housing the local headquarters in Painesville, Liberia, was recently completed at a cost of tens of thousands of dollars. The structure at ELWA was completed years earlier. Beyond his pastoral responsibilities, Pastor Saab's greatest love and foremost calling is as an evangelist and a teacher. That calling has seen him traverse the difficult and sometimes dangerous terrains in towns and villages in Africa, as well as log thousands of miles in travels to Asia and other parts of the world. In the process, he has led thousands to Christ and conducted many teaching seminars to equip pastors and church leaders. He is a servant leader, continuously seeking to lead by example. Pastor Saab is actively engaged in the community and the Liberia Ministers Association in Minnesota, an organization for which he formerly served as the Assistant Executive Director. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in accounting and is married to the beautiful Cleopatra T.S. Saab. He is the father of 4 daughters. For his leadership of the Faith Chapel Evangelistic Ministries, his dedication to evangelism and commitment to his community and the body of Christ, the men's department of the Faith Chapel Evangelistic Ministries appreciates and honors the Reverend John B. Saab. Church administration is spiritual service to the body of Christ, which involves the wise stewardship of God's resources for the accomplishment of the work of ministry. Administration is not an end in itself, but rather it is a means for serving people effectively and making efficient use of resources in a manner that glorifies God. At Faith Chapel, that responsibility falls to Deacon Joe S. Mason. Deacon Mason understands all too well that the success at Faith Chapel, especially in this 21st century, hinges on effective and efficient leaders, and administration plays a key role in helping the pastor and the leadership in actualizing the ministry's vision. As the ministry continues to grow and expand, Deacon Mason's responsibilities have become even more challenging. Whether it's ensuring fiscal accountability, managing the church's assets, coordinating events and programs, leveraging technology to advance the church's goals, or lifting as much weight off the shoulders of the pastor as possible so he concentrates on meeting the spiritual needs of his people, Deacon Mason carries out his responsibility in as unassuming a manner as possible. He is a fervent believer in 1 Peter 4 verse 10, which states that each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. He sits on the board and holds membership in a number of local and national organizations. He is the current National Vice President of the Association of Liberian Journalists in the Americas, ALJA, an organization comprising current and retired Liberian journalists in the Americas, which advocates for press freedom and basic civil rights in Liberia. He holds a bachelor's degree in mass communications from the University of Liberia and a master's in public administration and nonprofit management from Hamlin University in St. Paul, Minnesota. Deacon Mason is married to the beautiful and charming Kate Reeves Mason, and the couple is blessed with 5 children. For his steadfast dedication to the Faith Chapel Evangelistic Ministries, his service to the community, and commitment to the body of Christ, the immense Department of Faith Chapel appreciates and honors Deacon Joe S. Mason. The significance of gospel music in our Christian sojourn cannot be overemphasized. It teaches us the gospel, connects us to God in unique ways, and allows us to express our love for God with our whole being. Unlike religious leaders who are most often revered, gospel artists, especially immigrants, are struggling to find their voices and gain prominence locally and across the country. One person who is trying to change that is the Reverend Christian Vincent. Reverend Vincent's two-pronged efforts to promote African gospel music, as well as the artists behind the songs we hear, began in 2005 through his Gospel Safari Ministries, which at the time involved open concerts in such venues as the community parks. He also broadcast on the local Access TV station in Brooklyn Park, and the signals were beamed into Monrovia via DC 101 radio station. Fast forward 14 years later, the Gospel Safari Ministries and GSM TV network, of which Deacon Vincent is the founder and chief executive officer, has expanded its reach and can be heard on multiple platforms, including Apple TV and Google TV. As a way of putting our African artists on the pedestal and recognizing them for their remarkable work, the annual GSM TV Musical Award was established. The award brings together African gospel artists from across the United States to Minnesota to recognize the progress they continue to make. Reverend Vincent and GSM TV can be seen at many church-related activities, including musical concerts and revivals doing live broadcast. He's married to his co-partner in ministry, Sister Florence Vincent, and is a father to 4 kids. He is the outreach pastor at the Cross of Glory Lutheran Church in Brooklyn Park and is currently pursuing a master's in divinity degree from the Wartburg Theology Seminary in Iowa. For his passion and promotion of gospel music and our local African gospel artists, and his steadfast commitment to the body of Christ, the Men's Department of the Faith Chapel Evangelistic Ministries appreciates and honors the Reverend Christian V. Vincent. Giving to missions is a vital part of evangelism. In order to devote themselves full-time to ministry, evangelists, missionaries, and indigenous workers need financial support from many who choose to support but not go necessarily. Brother Elenius R. Davis does both. He supports mission and goes as well. Brother Davis and Faith Chapel go back to 1996, and as a founding member is passionate about the ministry's evangelistic mission. As owner and manager of the Susan African Food Market in Fargo, North Dakota, Brother Davis has often supported mission trips using resources from his business. Whether it's a trip to Sierra Leone or Liberia, or traveling east to China and the Philippines, he has become a reliable partner to Pastor Sam in global evangelism and soul winning. He holds a Master's in Business Administration from Hamline University in St. Paul, Minnesota, with emphasis in conflict resolution, and a graduate certificate in project management from Villanova University in Pennsylvania. He and his beautiful wife Susan are blessed with 5 children. For his passion and support of evangelism and his commitment to the Faith Chapel Evangelistic Ministries, the Men's Department honors and appreciates Brother Elenius Ira Davids.